think about Jack?
I thought he played well. I did. He was. I was hoping that the game would match the practice. To be honest with you, that's your uneasiness going into a game with a guy that hadn't played, and he did what I saw at practice. He's accurate. The ball went to the right place. It was out on time. There was probably 2 communication issues through the course of the game, and it was probably more my fault than his fault. And but overall, I thought we executed pretty well with that first group, minus a couple deals.
Watching that first quarter and a half, or even the first half alone, you guys, to me, it seemed like you were doing things that you weren't losing your minds. In other words, you can go out there and do that again, kind of stuff. It was the normal within the context of what you guys do. It wasn't anything really crazy. I mean, there was the turnover and the punt return, but I'm guessing that's kind of heartening from a coaching standpoint.
What are you saying, like disheartening?
No. The just going out, and you guys were able to move the ball and were very efficient, very effective, without doing anything.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah, we were just running. We were running base stuff. You mean? Yeah, no doubt. I thought that. And that was kind of the plan, to go out there and do what we've been doing in camp. We wasn't gonna get too crazy. We wasn't gonna sit there and show a whole lot of different things.
Right.
And hopefully we could line up and move the ball. And I thought the couple things I was looking for really overall was I wanted our pace of play to be good. I thought it was good. I thought it was probably as good as it's been since I've been here. And we played fast. There was a couple times when we were trying to go fast that it got slowed down a little bit. But overall, our pace of play was good that first half. We had 2 possessions that first half where I thought when the game started getting out of hand, we kind of relaxed a little bit, which is natural but irritating to me. And that 1 3 and out was in that little deal with the ones, where it was 3rd and 2 and we didn't get it. I mean, that's a little bit frustrating. But overall, I thought that first half went well.
Y'all tried to rush up and get that field goal right before half. Is that more than anything sending a message to the guys that you're up 41-0, but you gotta have the pressure on there all the time?
Well, I think too. I mean, in those kind of situations, it's good to work on things. Obviously, we didn't execute it the way we wanted to, and so hopefully, the next time that situation arises, that we will. And so, when situations come up in games like that, I think it's good to try to work it. And I think, and we communicated it before the deal. I just asked Coach Hop, I was like, "What do you want to do?" He said, "Well, let's go." So I had the first play in mind, and we had about a 30-yard gain there to DeMichael, and then there's a couple things you can do right there. I mean, you can obviously clock it, and then try to get the field goal team on with the clock stop. But we were trying to work our Toro fast field goal, and it didn't work out like we wanted. But that is something that in situations where you don't have a timeout and you got to run them on the field. We got to be able to execute that. And I think that, obviously I'm not the special teams guy nor the guy that makes those decisions, but if you're asking me just in general that we were trying to work that situation.
Now that you've got a chance to watch the film, anybody kind of stand out to you that maybe before the film or during the game that you didn't notice as much?
Statistically, Quez had a statistically really good day. And it's funny how those days are going to be fluid. There's going to be times where another guy has that day. One guy that stood out on film to me that statistically might not have had a day that opened people's eyes, but did everything else was Jalen. Jalen he blocked his tail off all night on run game. And then when we threw screens, he was putting that guy on the sideline, And so to me, I look at his game, although Quez got the yards, to me, Jalen got my heart because he was physical. And I love that, He was really fighting on the edge. And that's always good to have guys like that because, he had a couple opportunities down the field that were thrown a little higher or whatnot. But, when you're not the one making all the big plays and you're still doing that, that says a lot about his character and his buy-in,
Sticking with receivers, good to see Jordan back out there.
Absolutely. I thought that was a phenomenal play he made. Obviously a good throw and catch. And that's what you see with Jordan in practice a lot. You just got to get into the game and get him healthy, which he's a healthy kid right now. So, he can make those plays for sure, and he's been making them. So we got a lot of depth at that position which is obviously a good thing.
Have you sensed from Jordan over the last couple of years, kind of maybe frustration that things aren't going right with injuries?
I don't know. Jordan's the kind of kid, to be honest with you. I don't know if he gets too frustrated. I mean, I think that naturally he's frustrated because he's been hurt. Jordan's overall, off the field beliefs and his just personality and character probably put him to a place where he probably don't get frustrated with many things in life.
In general, with these receivers, I know you were getting a lot of off coverage, but just how open they were getting in space. What were they doing so well running routes?
Well, I think our routes are very crisp. I think that, Scotty does a great job with those guys just harping on, look, man, getting in and out of your breaks. But I do think just their overall speed backs people up, because ultimately defenses don't want to get beat deep. And so our job is to balance the over the top versus underneath attack,
Yeah, and I think you guys ended up with almost 100 yards on those little screens. How much did that help? They were back.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, we got to, in those screen games, they're very simple. I mean, if you got numbers in their back, don't get greedy. Just take it, because those plays can end up being 40, 50, 60-yard plays too, And so, I think that's a big element of our run game, A lot of those are attached to run game, and quarterbacks got to make decisions on where the ball goes.
Jack obviously isn't the tallest quarterback, but it didn't, how does he work around that, or is that just noise whenever you, say a guy?
I've never believed in that deal with quarterbacks. I've had quarterbacks that were 6 foot that were the best quarterbacks I've had, and I've had some 6'3" guys and some bigger guys that were really good too. But ultimately, I've always believed at quarterback, you see through lanes. You don't see, because even if a quarterback's 6'3", O-linemen are 6'5", 6'6". And so ultimately, you're not always seeing over them. You're seeing through them, And I know that's a hard thing to understand if you've never been back there. I mean, how tall do you think I am?
6'1"?
No, not 6'1". Probably, I was 5'11" and 3/4 my whole life. So I say 6 foot. But it was hard for me, because there's just certain people that have a knack for seeing through lanes, and I had a hard time seeing, to be honest with you. And I was not nearly the quarterback that these guys that I'm coaching are, but just knowing back there in the fire of things, it gets tough. But you see through things, you see through alleys. And I think that if you watch that game close, one of the things that Jack does as good as probably any quarterback I've had is he has good pocket presence, where he moves through little crevices to get open spots really good.
Is there anything you didn't get to see that maybe you wanted? Is there anything you didn't get to see that maybe you wanted to see?
You talking about with
Just
not,
in general.
with the first group, I was a little bit frustrated because, we didn't run the ball like I thought we should have ran the ball. But ultimately, the other team dictates that a lot too. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting there and we're trying to really pound them and run the football, but ultimately I'm sitting here saying, well, they're giving us this, So I had to be diplomatic in where the ball would go. I can't beat my head against the wall. So I was a little bit frustrated that we didn't run the ball as good as I thought we were going to come out and run the football, but I thought that Jackson State did a decent job of loading the box. And they were probably thinking in their mind, new quarterback, let's make this guy, you see what he can do, And so ultimately that's how the first half played itself out,
Were you happy to see them loading the box like that?
I was personally. It doesn't matter. I think our job offensively is to take advantage of whatever they're doing defensively. So when they came out and they were, it was obvious that they didn't want us to run the football against them. And so ultimately you got guys outside that should have big days, and so, and we do. Not just saying that we got to be able to run the football better versus a loaded box, and I think that's where I was getting at a while ago. We got to be able to run the football a little bit more effectively versus those kind of looks. And there's some things that we could have done that we didn't necessarily want to do that probably could have helped in that, but ultimately I was going to stick with the few things that we had planned to do and just say, look, we got to do it better,
How'd you like what you saw from Tate and Marcello and their little cup of tea?
I thought Tate really came out and did some good things. I was frustrated with both those groups, to be honest with you, because when we subbed, we turned the ball over 3 times in a row. with those backups, which were very, very frustrating, you know, because now we might lead the nation in turnovers right now based on those 3 possessions, you know. But that's frustrating. I mean, take care of the football. That's your job. And so ultimately, we got to get that cleaned up. You know, I mean, that's unacceptable for any group that's out there. And that will be something we talk about very in depth today with that group. But ultimately, as the game settled in with those 2s in the second half, I thought we did some good things, you know. I think Tate really, in those couple drives, he drove the field the first time and then they fumbled the exchange. And then the next time he got in, I just went back and forth with those 2 guys. The next time he got in, he went down the field and scored. So I thought that was positive. He looked calm out there, you know.
Can you backup running backs that got in the game? Can you see them coming maybe more in the upcoming weeks, getting more chance early in the game?
I do, yeah. There were certain guys that, you know that position is a lot more complicated position than people probably think, with all the protection stuff, and you know, and there was a couple of those guys I wanted to let the game go like it did and then get them in there, but ultimately those guys showed me that, you know, that they could play. And so yeah, absolutely. I think that's the beautiful thing about the way that game unfolded, was the second half we could really put those guys in, and mainly Travinsky, you know, Mosley. I mean, put him in and let him play some. You know, I mean, Steven's going to be a part of what we do regardless because of the nature of what kind of player he is, you know. But I really wanted to test the young guy out and see in the second half, and I think that he played well, I thought.
So it's safe bet to say Mosley, he's gonna get a lot of playing time. That red shirt's not gonna be affecting him this year.
Yeah, you know, I would venture to guess that he's gonna get reps. You know? And a guy like, I mean, you know, talking about running backs, and I don't want to sit here but Darius was a guy too that, you know, he didn't play Saturday, but that was for a reason. We were not down on him at all. We just want him to, coming off of a deal that he had, we want to get him feeling 100% comfortable before we put him in the game. And so I was just a little bit with him. I was a little bit hesitant. We talked about it before the game, but Darius has the tools and ability and the capability to be special. And so don't forget about him.
How close is he?
He's close. To be honest with you, he probably could have played Saturday, but you know, I mean, the way I was looking at things, I guess I was probably just a little more careful than maybe I even should have been with him. But ultimately, that's where my heart and mind was before the game and leading up to the game, and so that's a decision that Les and I made, you know, and we presented it to Hop, and I think Hop felt the same way. And so, you know, you go back and you can, you know, second guess every decision. But ultimately, what I wanted was to be here on Monday with a healthy Darius that has another week to prepare, you know.
Did you get to visit with Coach Mummy after the game?
I did.
Yeah.
I visited with him after the game. I talked to him briefly before the game. And so obviously I have a lot of admiration and respect for that guy. I mean, he gave me a job years ago, which was nice of him, you know, and introduced me to a lot of people and a lot of opportunities. And so, you know, I'll always be in debt to him, you know, and so I'll always voice my appreciation when I see him, and he knows that. And you know, after the game, I mean, it was a good conversation between me and him. And I think, to be honest with you, I think whenever they start playing in their league, they're going to be, I think you'll see that they'll be a pretty tough team to handle.
Anything else? Thank you, Coach.
All right, guys.
All right, Coach.